and Katy. Robin, why don't you have a seat right here? Yes, right here. Katy, why don't you sit right there, and then Brent right down at the end. All right. And here we go. All right, hold on a second. Let me make sure I can get you guys both on the camera. Oh, I had somebody come in here the other day and decided to rearrange my stuff. Oh my gosh. Hold on a second. Let me adjust that for you. Yeah, I came in here on Friday and someone decided to come and remove everything. All right, here we go. Welcome, you guys. Turn your microphones on. Brent, how are you?
Fine. How are you doing?
Doing well. Doing well. Okay, let me see here. Got everybody in camera. We got everybody ready to go. Let's start off with Robin Monroe's here. She's running for. Make sure you're not out of the shot. You are running for place 4 on the city council. I just want to go ahead and have everyone make kind of an opening statement. And then we'll get right into it. So why are you running for city council?
I'm running for city council because I think we need to get back to basics in Kerrville. It's a great place to live. But since the city council has chosen to get into so much debt, I feel that we're at a crisis point with it. And I think that we need to look at our infrastructure as being our core responsibility, and everything else is extra. So we need to take care of our police first. And one of the things I have an issue with is my opponent said that her goal was the 2050 plan. They've done over 200 items on the 2050 plan, but her main thing is safety in the community. And I'm just curious as to why the police have been left out of the 2050 plan as far as a priority of those 200 items that they completed while she's been in office.
Okay. All right. Katy.
Yes. Hi, I'm Katy Chapman Hanna. I'm running for City Council, Place 3. I am running because I have been told by a great many constituents, as may I remind some of our listeners, that I petitioned to get my name on the ballot. And while I was petitioning, I spoke with many, many people, and they all had a very similar a similar concern, and that is that they felt unrepresented and unconnected by their representation, those people who are elected to speak for them, and that oftentimes whenever they would bring their concerns to the council, they were disregarded, and their concerns were, they were made to feel that they were not important or that they were piddling, not concerning. And so I'm here to speak for those who have asked me to make sure that their voices are heard. I'm very much opposed to spending money willy-nilly. I think we have a huge amount of debt, and I think that the fact that our streets are a mess and the fact that we are having to go into huge amount of debt at this very bad time financially in our country is just an example of how everything has been kicked down the road. The actual basic structure and function of government, which is to pay for infrastructure, our roads, our signage, our first responders. The fact that we're in this position means that they've been putting other things first, other things that are not within their scope of practice. This is not within their authority to have approached and spent money on first. So I'm here to represent those people who really want to see their tax dollars used for what they are intended for. Thank you.
Brent Bates.
Yes, I'm running for the same reasons that these two ladies are running. I've been here 30 years. I actually started the River Trail about 5 to 7 years before the city started theirs. I finished the pavilion with my own personal labor and effort when the city wouldn't touch it, and the nonprofit that got it started did the Little League fields, half of them across from the junior ag barn. I'm here representing a bunch of businessmen that didn't have the intestinal fortitude to run on their own. They kept calling me and saying, Bates, you're already suing them in federal court. We don't want them doing to us what they're doing to you. Somebody has to stop it. And so I've kind of taken on the cause of being that somebody. So that's why I'm running. Also, both my daughters have moved back to the area. I actually was going to move to Mason, but I figured I'd stay here and see if we could clean this mess up.
Well, they need a new courthouse in Mason now, too, apparently. So
yes, they burned that sucker down.
Burn it down.
Speaking of courthouses, I have a present for you later.
Okay.
You're going to enjoy.
All right. Here is the let's talk for a minute about the debt. You guys put up an ad last week that said for 40% reduction in property taxes. Tell me what that means exactly.
Basically, most people out there that live in the real world, the kids on social media, it's IRL, in the real world, So those of us that live in the real world and don't have the tax base to pay for any mistakes, screw-ups, or boondoggle we want to try and afford, all of us have seen the appraised values of our homes go up precipitously.
Right.
And in fact, because it's a mathematical equation, when the rates go up, they can keep the rates the same, but then they're going to get a huge windfall.
Right.
And so all we're saying is that the three of us are committed to lower those rates by 40%. For most people, that's going to take your taxes back 2 years, maybe 3 years, depending on how much your house has gone up. The city's going to scream like a scalded dog. The reality is it's only going to lower the overall revenues to the city by about 6%, based on my calculations. And so here's the truth. Everybody out there is having to live off of a whole lot less money, purchasing power of their dollars due to inflation. Remember, I managed money during the last inflationary period. I was a certified financial planner, registered investment advisor, so on and so forth. So this is in my wheelhouse. And so what I'm trying to do is in this pledge, we're trying to give the citizens a little bit of money back to help them so that they don't go broke during this inflationary period. And we're doing so by lowering it only enough that the city, if the city can't manage on 94 cents on the dollar, we got a big problem, because everybody out there is having to do the same. I'm sure you're doing the same.
Well, let me ask you this. So I have the property tax rate right here up for you guys to see. This is the current rate is at 0.509, which is, they've lowered it every year. It's been stable since 2011. So you're saying is that you want to lower that rate 40%, 0.30.
Yep.
But the city would say that that's a 40% hit on the general fund.
No, it's not.
How do you figure that? I mean,
first off, you got to look at what are the revenues,
right?
Okay, and basically, ad valorem taxes are only about 22 to 24% of everything they get. The other thing you have to consider, and the city's really good. We have a Class A accounting department that is great at confusing the numbers. So let's go for real numbers.
Okay,
22%, 23% of all revenues are ad valorem taxes. Correct?
I think it's higher than that, but yeah, it's $10 million.
Okay, yeah, but of the total amount of money that they get in, if you look at their little pie chart,
it's $18 million from sales tax and from the property tax.
So then, how in the world does lowering the 40%? And oh, by the way, they're not taking into account that about 30%, 32% of our taxpayers are frozen.
But your ad said 40% though.
Let me finish the math.
All right.
Okay. So if you have 30 to 32% of your taxpayers are frozen, all right, meaning that their taxes aren't going up, they got those big appraisals, and those big appraisals are going to come to bear to roost with their kids when they inherit the home. But they're not participating in the 40% reduction.
Right.
So if you do the math accurately, you got to take a weighted average of how much is actually being paid by the general taxpayers, how much is being paid by those that have their taxes frozen, and the fact that it's only 22% of the total nut.
But the thing that I think that's the thing I struggle with was the ad said 40%. And if you look at that number, if you look at the number you're talking about a $4 million hit on the budget. Do you think that's not right then?
No. Well, first off, here's the thing you got to
consider.
You
think the $4 million is the right number?
Well, actually, I don't mind. After this, I'll send you my worksheet and calculations. Right. Here's the thing to consider. Already last year, we're up 13% on our sales tax. So let me ask you this, Lewis. Do you think that the economy here is 13% better today than it was a year ago?
I do, actually. I really do.
You do actually think it's 13% better today than it was.
I mean, because you see the growth in the sales tax. You see the growth in the housing.
When you went to the grocery store, how much more are your groceries today than they were a year ago?
Probably about 8 or 9% based on inflation.
Okay. So guess what? How much is gasoline?
$3.79 a gallon right now.
Okay. How much was it a year ago?
Probably $2 a gallon.
Okay. How much are your taxes increasing?
Well, I rent, so I don't know. I mean,
well, actually, you end up paying the taxes.
I pay the taxes anyway, so I'm in pretty good shape right now, I think. So I pay that rate.
Actually, as a renter, about 30% of your rent is for taxes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and so basically everything is going up. So there's no way mathematically that the economy can be 13% better when all of it was due to inflation. When I was at the candidate forum, and I strongly suggest everybody go to Mayor Bates 2022 and look at the candidate forum between myself and Judy. And basically at that point in time, I explained that the two biggest problems in Kerrville is 1, inflation, and 2 is water. Now, the
Inflation, though, is a national problem, though, that
Inflation-
might be brought under control by interest rate hikes.
No. 80%,
You don't think so?
80% of all money is less than 2 years old.
Okay.
I repeat, 80%, 80, not 8, not 18, 80% of all money is less than 2 years old.
Okay.
So you think this inflation is going to last for just a year? Here again, I managed money at the tail end of the last one.
Right.
Okay. I'm classically trained in all this stuff. The last inflationary period was 7 years in the late 70s, and it was 121% increase through that 7 years. My prediction is we're going to get 180 to 200 in the 7-year period that they'll.
You think it'll be better?
assign
You
to
think it'll be
this.
greater than the 70s?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Why?
And why? 80% of all money is less than 2 years
And
old.
we're sending billions and trillions of dollars overseas, and we're wasting a great deal of money. So yes, and this is fiat currency we're dealing with. So back in the 70s, they didn't have the same problems that we have now. And right now, Congress is spending willy-nilly. And how much more did we send? $33 billion to Ukraine, again, just to Ukraine. Just to Ukraine. We have our own problems at home, and we're sending all of this money over there. I think there's mismanagement nationally, so please don't talk national. Let's talk about right here.
Yeah.
Mr. Bates, please continue.
Well, I guess I'm going to go back to this again. You want to cut 40%, though. Did you
The
guys
rate.
actually look at that?
The rate.
But you didn't say that in your ad, did you?
No, I did in my ad.
I think you said 40%, and people
No,
are saying to
if
me
you-
40%.
If you look at the poster that we've got out there voting,
So
it
what
says
is
rates,
what is the
RATES.
actual cut to the city budget you want to make? And did you guys actually look at that rate?
Oh, I calculated it all, Louis.
What do you cut?
I'm
What
a
do you cut?
financial advisor.
But what do you cut?
You think I'm going to say that without doing any calculations? I'm not like you.
I
don't
agree.
write a newspaper article without talking to the person.
I
also could spell your name right whenever I'm going to do it.
So you want to go that way?
No.
So-
You want to
No,
sit there and
here's-
you want to tell
no,
me?
No,
Let's-
what I want-
hold
no,
on,
what I-
hold on,
no,
hold
no,
on, hold
no,
on.
listen to me.
Okay.
You've had the forum and written very deflammatory articles about
I have
me
written nothing
with
about
no
you.
information
About what?
whatsoever.
About
okay?
what? What have I written about you that wasn't true?
So let me look at these two pieces of paper.
Okay.
I'm bringing you a present. You're an investigative reporter, right? Yes. What is the first page? First
Dear
page
City
is
Craig, is
an
the documents.
open record request made by me. What's the
Right.
date of that email?
August 20th.
Okay, look at the next page. What's the date of that email?
August 21st.
Okay, what does that email say?
It says, Steve, given access, he's going to cull the emails. I
Wow.
searched Brian and Danny's using this criteria.
Okay, so basically the day after I do an open record request asking for all correspondence, emails, so on and so forth, they've given access to
Right.
Stephen, the chief building official, for the purposes of culling emails.
Right.
So let me ask you a question. What is that?
I don't know. Do
You're an
think-
investigative reporter, and
You tell me.
you can't
You tell
connect
me.
those two dots.
You think that you're suggesting that they got rid of your emails? They got rid of the emails.
What does the term cull mean?
Right. I guess I do a certain amount of investigative reporting, and yes, this is interesting to me that there is culling going on, but I guess I'm confused. You said you handle money.
Do you not know that culling emails after an open record request is probably considered destruction of?
It could
Of
very well
evidence.
be. It's definitely worth a conversation with EA Hoppy about that.
Okay,
for
so
sure.
you're going to go talk to EA
Absolutely,
about it? Okay,
absolutely. But let's talk about managing money.
good. Okay.
Let's talk about your history in not paying people back.
Okay, hold on.
No.
I've got-
This is my.
I've
Hold
got
on.
one thing to
This is
say
my
to
show. This is
local.
my show. Hold on a second. I want to know
Okay.
you owe $300,000 to a couple that's no longer
Oh,
alive.
I owe more than $300,000.
You owe $500,000.
I don't know what that number is, but I
But
know
you
there's
have a
more than
history of
300,000.
not paying people back.
Okay, and where does that history come from?
That's in the court documents.
Okay, where does that history come from?
That comes from your own personal behavior.
No, actually, it comes from the city of Kerrville.
But see,
I lost two. Hold on.
Yeah,
Lewis, you asked the question,
Okay.
so let me answer it.
let me ask you this:
No, you asked the question,
Charlene
let me
Spalding,
answer it.
in her
Now,
documents, said
let me-
that you defrauded her. How do you answer that?
Charlene Spalding is sitting in a $300,000 to $400,000 to $500,000 condo that her husband basically bilked me out of. Okay.
Okay.
And so
She built you out of the Guadalupe Palacios ones, right?
out of the condo that she lives in.
You
all
didn't-
right?
you-
I paid Lewis.
Yeah. But I'm just trying to get this right because
Yeah, Lewis, you're not going to get it right if you don't talk to the horse's mouth and let the horse talk.
I'm looking at the court documents.
The court documents don't mean squat.
How could they not mean squat?
They're allegations.
They're public records.
So they're public allegations.
You were
So I
settled
make a
against
public
him numerous times.
Was-
You had settlements against you in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015. Every year, you have some kind of settlement against you for some kind of financial practice. Comerica Bank went after you for $20,000. American Express went after you for $15,000. You have tax liens against you for hundreds of thousands of dollars. The Texas
right,
Workforce
so
Commission went for you for $5,500.
All right, Lewis.
$500,000.
Hey, Lewis.
Yeah.
Can I talk?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But I guess I struggle with the idea that you're a financial advisor and you handle money financially when you can't seem to pay people back.
Lewis, I lost $2 million on the condos.
Okay.
You know how I lost $2 million?
You say because of the city of Kerrville. And I definitely wanted to hear what you think about that. Tell me about how they...
Are you going to let me talk without
Absolutely.
interrupting? Okay, so you're going to be quiet.
I will be
How long are you
quiet.
going to be quiet for, Lewis?
Maybe 30 seconds.
Okay, well, it's a lot longer than 30 seconds. Obviously, you've never done anything in your life because you don't understand how complicated things are, especially in the world of development, and especially in this town.
See, this is how you operate.
So-
you come back with personal insults about me. You don't
no.
even know me.
Gentlemen, please, let's stop this.
Come
Mr.
on now.
Bates, please answer the question.
Hold on a
here.
second.
Well,
here.
he's
I
not
want to
letting
answer
me
the question. I want to know the question.
He's trying to do his typical hatchet job. That's why he's got a 2-bit radio broadcast. So
This is from the guy who does
Okay, gentlemen,
crypto
please,
stuff. Come on.
let's do.
Let's go back to that. Let's
Okay.
go back to that. Let me hear the thing about the city of Kerrville.
Okay. On the condos where almost all of these arise out of. And by the way, a lot of this is me paying back people that technically I don't even have to pay back.
Right.
I could easily do the developer deal of, sorry it didn't work, I'm not going to pay you back. But instead, I said, yes, I will pay you back.
Right.
You lost on the deal. The city of Kerrville screwed all of us, and I'm going to make you whole. And so, yeah, I've got people that are waiting to get paid back. I'm waiting to be able to pay them back.
What did the city?
But here's the thing, all right? The city of let's put it this way. The abuse that I suffered on the condos was so heinous that they fired the city manager the very night that I did an appeal. The chief building official quit the very night of that appeal. And 2 weeks later, I got rid of the fire marshal. Are you aware of that, Lewis?
You've said that, and I've had trouble confirming that.
You've had trouble confirming that?
Yes.
Okay. And why are you having trouble confirming that?
Because I hear different stories about those departures.
You hear different stories about both departures.
Yes.
Okay. And what were the stories you were told? And who told them to you?
That they left on their own abilities, and that you had nothing to do with the fire marshal.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you interview Chief Hanna, who I threatened to sue if the fire marshal didn't?
But see, you're always starting to sue somebody though too,
No,
and so
no,
that's
guess
what.
The only thing you can do against government abuse, you can't kill them.
Right.
You know, they're in the Wild West anymore, so
Right.
you can't just off them.
Right.
And so the only thing you can do is threaten to sue them.
But I guess the thing is that you have this battle with the city. You're filing a federal court over an allegation. Correct me if I'm wrong. And the building is beautiful. I will say that the building is is a gorgeous building. But you are suing them, and the allegation is that you plugged your electricity into
Well, that doesn't have anything to do with anything, Lewis. It's a damn extension cord
into something that you don't own.
on. Get out of the ankle biting phase and get into the real game. Look at all those.
All
Lewis.
right.
What do all those say? Those are like 7 shell permits.
Right.
Notice how every one of them says shell. I'm going to leave you these documents, Lewis, so you can
right.
start doing some real work. So there's 7 shell permits. Every one of them says shell.
Yeah.
Right? Look at this permit right here. This is my permit. Does it say shell?
Hold on a second here.
No, it says office building.
Right.
Okay? Look at this right here. This is the email where the fire marshal approved that permit. You can see the dates all correspond.
Right.
What does he approve? He approves an office building with finish out.
Right.
All right, the city is saying that that's a shell permit. In your hand, that is a shell permit. They have quoted that in court. They're quoting that in federal court. And the only problem is they can't prove it. Now, the interesting thing is they have no problem changing documents. So look at there. There are 2 different applications. One of them is altered and marked through by hand, and the other one is altered and marked through by a computer.
Which is the one is the marked through the computer?
Look down
Go
where
ahead.
it says office building and it says finish out right after it. Middle of the page on the far right.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, how do you have 2 copies of an application
I don't know. Those are great questions to ask.
Different
generated by
copies.
the city?
Right.
Okay? And guess what, Lewis? That isn't all I got. I just gave you a little smidgen of what's going on with the city. So let's see. Calling emails is probably a felony.
But you say, though, that you feel like they have a personal vendetta against you, though.
Oh, you don't think?
I don't know. Why?
All of their inner office thing calls it the Bates building.
Right.
Everything's the Bates building. Oh, we got a nasty email from Mr. Bates. Let's shut down the city and everybody go in and we're going to talk about the Bates building.
Right.
Literally, in fact, I have a daughter that worked for GM Financial in their HR, and she's helping me administrate some of these documents, and she's like going, Dad, are these people morons? Do they not realize that calling it the Bates building in and of itself shows that you've been targeted?
Right.
So, Lewis, you need to quit doing the ankle biting stuff about some of my past indiscretions, call it, and get onto the big game of the illegality that's going on in our city.
But I could make the same argument that your inability to pay people back is a direct reflection on your ability to lead the city.
No, it has nothing to do with one or the
Absolutely.
other. So let me ask you
How
a question.
do you not say that?
Well, let me ask you a question. The city arbitrarily delays a 5-day permit. It took me 92 days in appeal to get a 5-day permit.
Right.
Do you know what the interest cost is for 90 days on a project the size of the projects I work on? No, you don't have a clue. Okay.
Well, I'm sure
because
it's
if
high.
you did, you wouldn't be asking the questions of me that you're asking.
I'm asking you important questions about the character of your leadership. You
the
said,
character of my leadership. You find somebody that wants to question the character of my leadership.
Because you said you have
what you've done is you've gone in and found some court documents, whether they're pleadings or whatever in the hell they are, and you're making accusations, which is the same thing that you've done for the last 3 times.
You've had 2 judgments against you for $500,000, and one you didn't pay.
I do not have 2 judgments against me for $500,000.
That's in the court record.
No, it is not.
Absolutely,
it is not.
$330,000 is the last one you had against you.
Okay.
You signed a deal in 2019 that said, I'm going to pay back Mr.
Okay, Lewis,
Mrs.
Can you read?
Oh, I can read.
Okay, if you'd have read that judgment correctly, the judgment against me was $30,000.
No.
The judgments against, oh, yes, it was because I paid it. Oh, by the way, that's what Patrick O'Feal used to go move and buy a ranch in Center Point, because Mrs. Spalding and Mr. Spalding sold their judgment to him for the persecution of me on this judgment. And then the other of it was $300,000.
See, this is the thing, though. It's always someone else's fault.
Lewis,
it's always someone else's fault.
No, it's not. Listen to me. All right. You go ask Jimmy Peschel. You go ask Susan Heffington. I had 3 or 4 real estate sales that would have totaled $280,000 of that judgment. And because I could not write Mr. Spalding one check,
right,
for $300,000, he refused the money. And what he told me was, quote, Brent, I'm rich. I don't need the money. We're going to keep the condo. I'm trying to destroy you.
Why would they destroy you?
Because
why would they do that?
Because his wife hates me.
Why?
I have no idea.
Why are you and those people that you represent trying to actually destroy us?
I'm not trying to destroy you.
Actually, Mr. Spalding, helped me finish the pavilion. He was one of the volunteers that did the pavilion.
Yeah.
He'd drive up and he'd have Charlene sitting in the seat with him,
right.
And Charlene looked like she, was ready to die.
Let's back up here for a second. Let's go to another thing because I want to get to everybody else here. Robin, you're suing the city because of the election. Tell me about that decision.
Okay, that decision is based out of the fact it was kind of an apex of things that go on in the city, that they feel like they're not accountable to their own rules, their own charter. And so it's really a simple 1-paragraph thing that they are bound by their own charter, right? That's their rules. It's like their constitution. Would you agree with that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so in the charter, I can read it to you. It states that the term of office for every candidate, it doesn't give November to November, 2 years, May to May, 2 years. It says a 2-year period. And it says it shall be, in law, shall be is it has to be at least a 2-year period.
Right.
So it was brought up in city council by several people that they didn't really have the right to do that. And
but they did, though.
They did. So the case is still pending because everybody made a big deal about my knee. Well, when I went to talk to the attorney, it had nothing to do with my knee.
Yes, you will be the first bionic.
Right.
How did it go, by the way?
Well, it's come along really well.
It's pretty amazing. You can walk around the next day, right?
Yes, it is. It's pretty amazing.
But the thing that I didn't understand about that conversation, though, and I asked George, George would always fight this battle.
Uh-huh.
Like, why would you fight that battle? Because essentially you're extending the unelected terms of Judy Eichner and Mayor Blackburn for more than 2 years. It would be 2.5 years. The only one that really suffers from this would be Brenda Hughes.
Well, no, I don't. I wouldn't look at it as suffering. For me, it's the principle. It's a principle that we have to abide and be accountable to laws and things that we say. Okay, this is our Constitution. This is what we should uphold.
Right.
And so I think to just downplay that is an indication of the very characteristics of how council does business, even with the budget. I mean, you can move and shell game the line items, and I've studied several budgets. And so I just wanted to read to you, if you would like me to. It says here in the charter of the city that the members of the city council shall hold their offices for a term of 2 years and until their successors have been elected, duly qualified in accordance with this charter. Okay? So I don't think it gets any plainer than that. And so the question was, and it could have been alleviated right in city council, if when we asked the question about the charter, they would have taken the time to treat us in a way to explain maybe what their thoughts were. But instead, it was the city attorney, Mike Hayes, who just adamantly said, oh, we don't have to do that, we don't have to abide by it, instead of treating the citizens who pay their salaries and just say, this is our thinking behind it, this is why we're doing it, and be more, open to discussion about we're questioning why they're doing it and just have a conversation about it. And they're famous for wanting to open and have just a conversation about it. So I think that this was my way of bringing that to the light, and it's still pending for the court. I'm not looking to change the date. It was at that point that it could have been. But my whole point is just to get an agreement from the court on one thing, to look at this and say, did they abide by the charter? It's a yes or no thing for the court, and it's still pending at this point.
Where's that at in the courts right now? Is it?
It's still pending. At this point.
And do you think they'll make a ruling by this weekend, or what is your sense of that?
No, my sense is that according to what I want, what has been voiced to the attorneys, that all I want is an opinion based on whether or not the charter. It's not about holding up the election. That came through. Attorneys make a lot of suggestions and things, and that was a suggestion made. But the whole core of my case is whether or not they followed their charter. That's all I want to say is yes or no. And if so, then this is like a pivotal point. This is the apex of things that they do that they just say they don't have to be accountable for. And I think just engaging in that conversation will bring light to a lot of things, a lot of other things. This was something that was immediate. Action had to be taken in the court, immediate. Something has to be decided on this. There are other things that go on that we could be tied up in years in court, and frankly, people can't afford to spend that kind of time bringing lawsuits against the city because of things they violate in their own charters. And so I'm just saying it's a simple fact of a yes or no, and it's pending in the court.
I think, one of the things that I looked at from and said with that whole thing was that, it was this is the question of the extraordinary powers that Governor Abbott was granted during the pandemic, and whether or not, I mean, to me, it's a bigger question than just local. It's a statewide, do we want to give the governor the power to sort of, he was the one that decided that we're going to move these elections, back in 2020. And then the Attorney General has come back and made rulings, which they have to kind of follow, that says you're not going to have an election in March. You're going to have an election in November. And he's told that to the city of Round Rock. He's told it to others as well. So it's a very interesting position. Let's talk about the debt for a second. You've maintained and others maintain that the city is $100 million in debt, which would be correct on paper, but a lot of those are revenue bonds based off water. There's a $40 million water bond. Those things. What is your answer to that?
Well, my answer to it is this: it's a simple answer. My answer to it is this: is that the city council is the forefront defense. They're elected by the people to be protection from city planners and city management based on what they want to do. The city council is to protect the taxpayer's dollar, to see that the budgets are done correctly, that a core infrastructure is taken care of. So all of the numbers, all of the zeros you're going to put on it, the only thing I have to say about that is the simple answer to it is we need to take care of core infrastructure: water, police, fire, and streets. That should be paid for out of the budget. Anything else is extra. So we're going into debt for things that should be a core infrastructure. Like right now, we have the $45 million bond. That's a big concern to me because I studied years of budgets, and I'm telling you that we don't have a line item for core infrastructure things, like the police department. We never saved to know that when we put them in that building back in 2000, it was a temporary thing. You can read the articles. I pulled the archives from the Kerrville Daily Times.
95, they said, we're going to be here for like 2 years, and they were here for 25 or 27.
That's right. And so city council at that point should have made the decision at that point to start saving for what we were going to do to put our police in a good building, to ensure that they got great paychecks, that their pensions aren't hurt, that their health insurance isn't hurt because they have to pay more now that we have more debt in Kerrville, and all those things get cut. And I know that because I come from that background. And when the city goes in debt,
from law enforcement,
yes. And when the city goes in debt, that's what happens.
But the city, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, but my understanding is the city can't save that kind of money to build that kind of building. They have to go into debt. There's no.
Well,
you
that's
can't.
true.
You're capped on how much money you can.
True.
Right.
So let me just expound on that a little bit. I totally agree. They can't save all of that money, but there is a boundary where you go in and you start like any family does. It's like we put things aside knowing that we're going to have a big expense, so you cushion it some. But my point is the 30 acres that they gave away for affordable housing, which I'm going to make clear, I don't think city council should be in the housing business. But my point is they gave away the 30 acres to a developer for affordable housing, knowing when they did that we needed to take care of our police. We needed land. We needed a building. Why couldn't they have sold that? The 1.8 million or whatever the cost was that they gave away, it's the 1.6 that the developers will be fined if they don't make affordable housing. So 1.6 million. They could have sold the property for half, and the taxpayers would be off the hook for the land they're under contract for now to put the police station on.
Right.
So I'm just saying, I think that's a mismanagement of funds. They could have sold it for half the amount and took the taxpayers and say, okay, now we've got this money set aside for at least the land is paid for the building.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Well, I think it does. I mean, my point, though, on that one was that the city, one, there was some discussion about that's where it should have gone, the building. And the police were adamant, like they did not want to be out there, They did not want to be on that.
I agree with that. It wasn't a good fit. But it still doesn't mean that they should have given it away. There was still an asset there that the city owned that was had capital. We had revenue coming in from that. They could have sold it for half the price if they wanted to make it attractive, dangle the carrot. But to just give it away, I don't know. And then I'm just saying, that's to any reasonable person, that seems unreasonable.
Well, to me, it seemed reasonable considering the fact that they wanted to attract a production builder after the failure of
the last production builder that they lost.
Kaufman and Broad.
Right,
after they lost the
hold on.
Rangers Museum, after they lost.
Mr. Bates, let me just finish my point. But
Sorry about that, by the way.
No, I find that's a great point. So would you say that again, just so I make sure that I have that? But it's a good point. I think that's a good point.
That they were concerned about. They wanted to have a production builder come in to build the kind of scale homes they wanted, and that when the Vintage Heights thing didn't work out with Kaufman and Broad, no, not Kaufman and Broad, it was D.R. Horton. That was the best way they think they could handle that.
Okay, so that's.
But you think housing though is not supposed to be in that?
So exactly. So that's my point. It's like they put affordable housing ahead of the police one more time, a core infrastructure that we have to take care of if we're going to have a great city and keep people safe, right?
Yeah.
Our police department and our police pensions and our police paychecks should have security and grow along with the community. It should be fitting to them so we can attract the best people to work here. And so it doesn't make sense to me that we're trying to attract affordable housing for revenue and getting into debt with a revenue stream that's causing tax, and this is another point I want to make since I have the mic.
Yeah.
Tax revenues to go up on the ad valorem tax. I have children that live in this community. When my children bought property here, a house, they bought property they could afford, like a $160,000 home, a $180,000 home. And now they're sitting with a capital gain on that with ad valorem tax of $300,000 and $400,000 pieces of property.
Right.
They're paying city taxes on. Their income stream has not changed. But the value of the house they live in, that's not what they budgeted for when they bought that house. So I'm just saying, inflation is a thief. But we cannot look at the revenue stream of the ad valorem like maybe Mayor Sue.
Well, it's all right. You can
but,
do it. That's good.
Sorry, Freudian slip.
Call me governor.
But Mr. Bates said
I call everybody
that-
doctor, so yeah.
we would roll back those taxes to what it was 2 or 3 years ago, because I see my children struggling over this for the taxes they have to pay. It's very frightening because that raises their monthly payment they have to save for. But to roll back what it was 2 or 3 years ago, and the city has to do the same thing. They have to roll back their spending, not look at the inflation as a generating of revenue to be spent. It's not. The city should be protecting. They have the choice whether or not to raise those ad valorem taxes. They have a choice whether or not to spend that revenue, choose to spend that revenue. And I'm just saying we have to get back to basics on core infrastructure and what city council stands for, and that's protecting the taxpayer's dollar, and we have to get to a balanced
Would
budget
you say
somehow.
that, like, would you guys get rid of, EIC as the one? I think it's state mandated. I can't remember exactly how it works here.
No, it's not. If you go look at a
not
bunch of other
state
cities,
mandated.
they
It
don't have
was a state
EICs.
law.
Right.
But
you can only use sales tax revenue there.
I hate to, but you are hitting all the things that I love. So EIC,
Go, girl.
I would say this. I would say EIC. I would say I have a little bit of a difficulty looking at the budgets, how much we spend on their admin costs to run that office of KDEC, not EIC. EIC is a volunteer board.
I had great damage done in here on Friday, by the way. And Katy, yours is going to go down too. There you go. Katie's. She works in. You work in a dental office, right?
Yes, my husband and I own a dental.
Yeah.
It's kind of like cranking down on a tooth
yeah,
right there.
right. Yeah. Let me make
So
sure
don't
that's.
get to do that fun
yeah.
stuff. No. So the AIC is run by a citizen volunteer board.
Right.
They look for things to improve the economy of Kerrville.
Right.
And then they present it to City Council, and City Council approves it. But KDEC is where I kind of have my issue, because KDEC does cost the taxpayers money.
Right.
So if you look at their administration costs, and I'm just trying to figure out, this is my only question, and then I'll turn it over to somebody else. My only question with KDEC.
KEDC, Kerr Economic Development
Yeah,
Corporation,
okay,
right?
KEDC
Right.
is that if you look at their administration costs to the point in April, it's over $156,000.
Right.
And I just want to know what the taxpayers are getting for that as far as bringing business in. Now, I sit in City Council and I look at the PowerPoint presentations, and I'm just saying I think that we should shift the KDEC and say that they get paid for what they do for the taxpayers, like a commission base, or it's an incentive base. But I don't know about paying them these. What are they getting paid? How are they getting paid? How much are they getting paid? Haven't gotten there yet, but it's very expensive. And I'm just saying I would like to have a cost analysis of what they've brought into the community, what we're getting for that,
Right.
and do we need to re-examine how much KEDC is valued as far as that kind of thing.
Right.
It should. My feeling is that it should be more incentive based, because a little bit of math I've done, I don't think they're earning their keep. I think they're very expensive to the taxpayers.
They are very expensive, that's for sure. I want to, Katie, I'll get you right here in a second. I want to ask one question of Brent. The issue with personal or property taxes in Texas is one that is not an easy one to address. How do you address that issue?
Well, here's the basic problem is, the Bible says that the Lord hates unequal weights and measures.
Right.
Property taxes have become the ultimate playground of unequal weights and measures. And so far in a community like Kerrville, I remember back in the early 90s, Fredericksburg tried to make us break up our Little League because we were beating snot at them all the time. And so I sent an analysis to the State Board of Little Leagues that unless I could put 65-year-olds and 75-year-olds in T-ball, I didn't have enough population to break up the league.
Right.
Because at that time we had like 3 times the number of seniors as was traditionally within the state. Because of that, there are literally people that have been here 20 and 30 years with their taxes frozen.
Right.
They generally vote for whatever kind of tax increase that comes along because they're told you're not going to be safe if you don't vote for it. I've never seen a building pull over a car for speeding. I've never seen a building run into a building and save somebody.
Right.
I've never seen a building prevent a rape or a robbery or anything else. And so one of the reasons I would love to see us minimize the amount of property taxes that we use to fund the city is that in this town it's a very unequal deal. And so you take someone like yourself that rents, that landlord's passing all of that right on to you.
Right.
And most of the people that are renting are living paycheck to paycheck. One of the things that irritated me the most when they gave me a stop work order, and they gave me one, allowed me to work, even though they lied and said they didn't, and then they finally gave me one and said absolutely no work. When they gave that to me, 25 guys that lived paycheck to paycheck had to go home to their wife or their girlfriend and say, I'm sorry, I got no more money coming in. They've shut Mr. Bates down.
Yep.
And the cavalier way with which the city does that is abhorrent. I mean, they're not concerned with their citizens. They're not concerned with the 25, 35 guys who were working with me or whatever. And the property tax is just another kind of playground for them to pit one class against another class and divide us and get to the things that they're really after, which is that ever-increasing revenue. It's going to be interesting to see how the city, and we've got people with master's degrees in public administration. You would think if you have a master's degree in public administration, you'd have 15 hours or more of education on how to wind a city down and lower its footprint and make it not as expensive.
Right.
And I'm really looking forward to giving the people at City Hall the opportunity to use that expertise and to work with the council for us to do that, because anybody in town that doesn't think that's needed, I question their sanity.
What do you think is needed, Katy, as far as economic development and fiscal management?
I think that if you put more money in people's pockets, there'll be a lot more incentive for them to open businesses and to spend their money on businesses. Additionally, what Kerrville lacks a great deal is the ability for average middle-class people to just do most of their shopping in town. Because I don't know about you, but there's a lot of people who know that they have to go to San Antonio or shop online for many of their necessities because Kerrville simply doesn't offer it. I mean, we have plenty of really neat little, curio shops and interesting things like that, and certainly a lot of necessities here. But what average people need are clothing for their children, cost-effective ways. We need Target, we need Ross, we need
Right.
TJ Maxx for people, but we have to go to San Antonio so they get our revenue instead of us. And I don't know why that is. We also know, because I've spoken with business owners, there's a really, really big issue with, and even I myself as a business owner have experienced this, getting people to come and work. You have people interviewing and they apply, but then after that there's nothing. And many of our business owners have that issue. They have a valuable business and they have a valuable commodity or a product that they want to sell, but they just can't get people to come and work.
Right.
And what I think Kerrville really needs is just to really take a step back and sit on our hands and pay off some debt and evaluate what we need, and just try to educate the average citizen in what their duty is, their civic duty, to understand how their government, their local government, is being run. Because it's like if you own a home and you have all these people, let's say you have a steward or someone running your home for you, and you look up and you're like, where's my paycheck going? It's gone, and why aren't these other necessities taken care of? And it comes down to people have to realize what their role is. We have to hold accountable those people who are supposed to be representatives for us, who are elected to represent us, who decide how to spend our money, who decide how to prioritize what is important to do now and what should be put on the back burner. And I want to come back to the same point, sir. We have a need for a safety facility, we need somewhere else for our police. That's what we need especially.
Yep.
And I've had a lot of very intelligent and I'd say adept business owners asking me why isn't Kerrville putting the administrative portion of those into the empty buildings that we already own. It seems like we want to just get something new and shiny rather than doing the most cost-effective thing, which is to use what we have until we can find the best option. It seems like the whole safety complex business has been just pay this or nothing. You have to pay $45 million or nothing, and that stinks to high heaven. Any of us with any sense can see that there are influential powers within this town, and the average person has no sway over that. I see all of the names that are one of the incumbents, and then Judy Eichner, and then Mr. Herring. All of their big signs are on Brinkman Properties and for Premier Properties, and that tells me something, because that indicates to me that those people have a vested interest in who sits in those positions. And when you have that kind of a difference in power, who holds the most power and the most money, then you go, okay, well then the priorities now make sense, because then they're really pushing downtown. They're really pushing the 2050, but at a breakneck speed. We all want to have sustainable growth, but what I see and what a lot of people are seeing is that we the average people have no say. What we do have is a really big tax increase, and what we do have is the bill. We get the bill,
right,
and they get the priorities, and that isn't fair. People really want to see that their voices are heard and taken into account, not just disregarded, because I've seen a flippant disregard for the average person speaking up, and I've seen a very significant disregard for Roman Garcia whenever he speaks to say something in as representation for a constituent. I've seen them roll their eyes. I've seen them get that look like, there goes Roman again, we're going to be here even longer. So, that does nothing to improve our opinion of the people who are supposed to represent us, but we can see very plainly they do not.
Do you see that there are things that the city should cut immediately, as far as services go and the luxuries we don't need?
I think that there's probably a great deal we can cut, but I would feel safer looking at all of this documentation and really picking it apart. I want the city manager in front of me. I want all of them in front of me. I want all of our constituents. I know one who used to be the head of budgeting for Shell Corporation. I know quite a few very intelligent people who have a background in finances, business, and these sorts of things, and I would want them right there next to me, along with the city manager, and I want to hand them a microphone and say, Mr. James, what do you think of what's going on here? What questions do you have for the city attorney, and what questions do you have for the city manager? And have the constituents with the background ask questions, because they're really leading us. This isn't just about us. We are merely representatives. We are a voice to speak for them and to give them a platform. The people of Kerrville will speak for themselves. The truth always speaks for itself, sir. And that's what we want. We want to make sure that the people are represented and not just special interests to have enough sense to put the people in that they want.
Right.
And the average person, they're too busy trying to make a living to be able to come out and vote, or even to be understanding what's going on around them. And another thing, sir, may I point out to you, we can make assumptions about, the inflation should only affect your gas or your grocery bill this percentage. But sir, let me point out, what I used to get for $100, I now get about a third of. And that's hard for people who have feeding teenagers. My goodness.
Yeah.
No, but I want to point out, sir, this is increasing their budgeting, what they have to pay, just to put out for their basic necessities. Yeah. And what we're trying to do is just find what isn't necessary and let the people decide what that is and cut it, so we can give our average people just a break. Because we will see those increases in just the average businesses. If I come in to buy my coffee at the Pint and Plow, whatever increases they see in their taxes, they have to pass along. That's just business.
Right.
And so we don't want to do that. We want to encourage growth. We want to encourage people to spend money in our town, because that's our bread and butter. But how do we do that if we continue to increase and increase?
The ultimate sign of inflation will be when your latte at Starbucks or Pine and Plow's $10.
Do not spend money at Starbucks if you can help it. They're a corporation. We want to support local.
All of that is one reason that we went ahead and took the pledge for the 40% decline, because basically what that does is that puts the city staff on alert that we're not going to rubber stamp the budget.
And we're going to pick that puppy apart.
In the past, what they do is they say, sales tax has gone up. We didn't raise the rate, but the appraisal went up, or we lowered the rate a little bit. The appraisal went way up more than the rate came down. And so here's all the money we got, and we're great budgeters. We spent every penny of it. And
right.
Basically, that's not going to float with the three of us.
I think I did a little exercise where I looked at what the cuts could be possibly, and one of the things that's interesting is that only about 42 cents of the rate that is currently goes directly into the general fund for maintenance and operations. 7 cents goes to repay that general debt service. So that's the CO that pays for the streets. That's for another, I think, $12 million. And then the $40 million of water is paid through the ratepayers.
Are you taking out the $2 million that comes from the water fund over to general administrative fees?
I'm not taking that out, but this is just
in other words, there's so many journal entries. I know that you don't consider me a financial expert, but let me explain something to you. There's so many journal entries going back and forth in this. If I looked at it as a business, I probably wouldn't invest.
I gave a couple options for people to look at here. We're going to cut the $4 million, and we can argue about whether that's accurate or not. Let me find the full screen here.
But you need to also add in the increase in sales tax revenues.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be. It'll probably won't be enough.
It's been reported as 13% in the last EIC meeting.
Yeah. What can I find? Oh, here it is. This is the reason why. Stand by. Here we go. So the option would be to say we would cut. Options would be to cut these following things. If to get 3.5 million, you would cut public information. Parks and Rec has a $1.9 million pass through from the city. They have about a $2.9 million budget. About $1 million of that is in direct revenue. So the idea would be you can only support yourself. Close the library, code compliance, building services, planning. That's about $3.5 million, and then reduce non-police salaries by $500,000, which would be get you to about $4 million. And then I gave another option, which was the same kind of deal, where the third option would be like you cut everyone's salary outside of police, which would be, there's layers of management you probably could look at as well. Have you guys taken a look at some of those things, or where do you think you would stand on these kind of cuts? No,
because unlike you, we put the debits and the credits into our equation. You're only putting the debits into the equation.
See, here's the thing, though, right? If you cut like
what's a 13% increase in sales tax?
13% increase in sales tax will cover the cost of the $4 million in cuts.
Okay.
There you go. We're done.
Can I just say this one thing? So the list you have here, to me, is incomplete because, when I look at the budgets, I look at a lot of maintenance we have on infrastructure in the city that costs the city money, but it doesn't generate any revenue.
Right.
That would be one of the first things I would look at cutting is if we are not using these buildings, they're sitting open, but we're paying for maintaining them, let's sell them and get rid of them. The other thing I don't really know how you have it in here is the KEDC. There's things like that. I mean, we're looking at their administrative costs for to date in April, $156,000. What does that add up to a year? So, I mean, I think that your list here is good, but I don't think it's complete. As far as a total picture of what cutting, there are a lot of things that could be cut that I don't see reflected.
The other reality is we only have administrative control over the final budget, okay?
Right.
And so by us taking the pledge, we're putting the city on notice that it's time to start looking at all this. We have got to give the only people we can fire is the city manager.
The only thing
we can't get rid of departments. We can't get rid of employees.
Right.
I think we can fire the city attorney. I think it's
on a 4/5 vote. Yeah.
And so basically all we're doing is we're telling them that we are assuming the correct roles of the council, which is that we're not rubber stamping your budget.
Right.
We're giving you directives as to what we believe as the core services. And believe me, we'll give them a whole lot more information after we're elected. But we're starting out with this ad valorem tax issue because all it really does, and we can parse all the numbers we want to parse, but the people out there are smarter than that. They realize that their ad valorem taxes have gone up more than 40% over the last 2 years.
But don't you think, though, that people would say, like, if you cut $1.9 million from the parks, right, which is direct general fund expenditures through
we haven't
property.
said we're going to do that.
But I'm just saying, though, because a lot was said about.
So why would we engage with you and hypotheticals?
Well, I'm just asking you a question about this.
Okay.
I mean, how would you handle that? I mean, that's one of the biggest expenses.
I'd give that to Mr. Hoppy and staff. There's our directive. You guys come back with a plan.
Right.
Now, if they can't come back with a plan,
right,
then I don't mind getting into the weeds and looking at it. And you've done a good job. I'll call you to get on a committee and we'll look at the weeds together.
I will stay out of that committee. But
yeah. Oh, come on, man. We're going to run you for mayor after me.
No, thank you.
You see,
here's one thing I will say to all of you is that, one, I think all of you are incredibly brave. And I thank you for your and I mean this, and you may not believe me, but I'm going to tell you this right now. I think anybody who runs for city government is crazy. I'll tell that to Brenda. I'll tell that to Joe, and I'll tell that because number one, it's a lot of work. And I think that people sometimes are unexpectedly surprised at how much work goes into the back end of that. And it's true of any elected office. Because what do you get paid? Like $25 a meeting, and you got to deal with people like me. And so it's a brave thing you're doing. So there's courage attached to this as well. So I thank you for your service on that piece of it as well. But I think, though, that, there's a lot of things in this community, though, that we have to look at and say, well, yeah, if we cut this and we cut that, what are the unintended consequences of this? And I don't know the answer to those questions. Those are going to be the things you're going to have to probably look at, going down the road. So.
Well, just like when they added all those things, they didn't think of the unintended consequences of how much money they're going to take from the taxpayers, how the roads are going to go and not get fixed, how the police are not going to have a building, how the Holdsworth, the ball fields are not going to pay for themselves, how the bond issuance and asking for a blank check is not going to pass. So that they didn't think of all those things when they built it.
Right.
Hopefully they'll think of
what
it
do you
as they
What do you
will
think
back.
is the biggest liability in the city?
The biggest liability in the city, again, is inflation.
Okay.
And the problem, we didn't create it.
Let me back that up. Let me say, it's the biggest potential expense for the city.
Okay, can I
go ahead.
kind of jump on that? Okay, so looking at the numbers here, let's just take one thing that we all can stay focused
Right.
on. All right, so we've got Proposition A, $45 million, right? We spent $150,000 on infrastructure, on a feasibility study. Back in November of 2019, it was submitted. In that submission, the person who did that, they put that the lowest cost for the police department would be $18 million to $23 million.
Right.
November 2019 is what, a little over 2 years ago?
Right.
How did we get to $45 million? So my thing is that Bruce Strachey, who did the feasibility study through Brinkman Commercial Property, either he was way off the mark on that, submitting that as a realistic goal for it to be done, and they're still on the same timeline if you look at that study. And the other thing I would say is that there was no land acquisition in the costs of these things. Why not? So, and the other thing, let me just finish.
Yeah.
So the next thing I want to say is that, so they've already got land under contract, and they've got land under contract with Brinkman Commercial Property, Bruce Strachey. So I just think it's kind of a handshake thing, and I'm a little nervous about the friend of the mayor kind of thing with Bruce Strachey and Brinkman Commercial Property. And so if you go back on these things and you look at, I can point out other projects too, like on the loop there where the landing was built. There's supposed to be businesses there, and there's not. And that was another Brinkman Commercial deal that came through. And so I'm just saying there's a lot of costs like that. That's, to me, where your question is, going back to your question, that's the biggest concern to me, is that when we're doing these things and putting money, taxpayer money, into pet projects or things that sound really good on the outside, but they're not really giving a quality of life to the taxpayers.
Right.
And so the constituents are not benefiting from these projects. It's just certain people are benefiting. I have a real problem with that.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest expense and liability is for the city, Katy?
I think just trying to do what we should have been doing this entire time are going to represent a huge amount of financial liability. Think about it. Our streets need a lot of work. We obviously need something for our police. I want to know what happened to our maintenance budget for our police station. Why do they have a leaking roof? Why do they have mildew? Don't we give them a budget? What we need to do, sir, and you need to consider that we're not coming in here just trying to upend the apple cart because we feel like it. Our point is there's so many people who are screaming at us, what is happening? We need accountability. And we have got to get in there and figure out why things are the way they are right now. We're not trying to point any fingers of blame at any specific group, because we've had this council and their predecessors have all chosen whatever their own priorities are. But what it comes down to is, why do we still have streets that are in poor shape? Why do we still have a police station now that was a temporary one in 95, as you said, and they're still in with leaking roof and mildew according to the city website? When if you go on the city website and you search for the 2022 bond election, it'll bring that up. I think that just trying to handle our infrastructure and to strengthen what we have in this bad financial time is going to be a huge financial burden. But that's going to mean we all have to tighten our belts, all of the departments, and we need to get with them. We need to look at everything and figure out where can we cut and where we take off the pork and leave only the vital structures. And so, definitely just getting everything where it should be is going to represent a huge financial liability.
My sense on the city's biggest liability is on the roads.
On the what, dear?
On the roads. I suspect it's a $100 million liability. Would you disagree or agree with that, Brent?
I probably agree with that. And the thing is right behind it, you got water. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally, there's not enough water in the fire hydrants to fight fires. And then out at my office park, right. I did one of only 2 actual fire flows where you actually turn the thing and let the water come out. And in fact, right now we're requesting a 3rd, but they're telling us they're not going to let us do it because we're in severe drought.
As Don Harris says, we need some rain. We need some rain.
Oh, sure, we need some rain, but we don't even have water restrictions going on right now, and they open the hydrant for just a few minutes, kind of a deal. But the problem is the water's not there, and we're a Class A rated fire community. How we have a Class A rating when stuff's coming out of the hydrant 300 gallons per minute below the standard. I was talking to a developer Saturday evening, and he and I both were talking about the fact that us local guys would develop low-income housing, but nobody wants to deal with the city. The same reason that a lot of businessmen said, hey, Bates, you're already suing them in federal court. Go run for mayor. We got to get this cleaned up. Development services has to be totally redone.
Right.
This is just abhorrent. They're abusive and so on and so forth. Now, we're not going to put your sign in our yard because God forbid they're going to come after me on my next project. Mm-hmm. And, I got a building permit over here. I don't want to suffer the same consequences you have, but I'm for you. I'm with you. But guess what? There's no reason we have the development community in town that if we didn't have to deal with that millstone of 500 pounds around our neck while we're swimming the river, we would build the things necessary, and it'd all be local, and it'd be local subs, and all of that money would rattle around here. I'm so tired of watching my tax dollars. By the way, I think I've probably paid about $50,000 or $60,000 in taxes on that building for the last 2 years when I can't do anything with it, but they have no problem collecting their taxes. So I'm so tired of paying all these taxes and doing all this stuff, okay, only to watch it get squandered by them. And basically some of the biggest impediments any developer has to overcome is the city. And if you go back to all of the things you found in court, the impetus and the bottom line of all of them is the project on Guadalupe Street, where basically, contrary to whatever they're telling you, the city manager got fired, chief building official quit, and I got rid of the fire marshal.
All right.
And
out of their abuse.
I'd like to point out, sir, that I appreciate you having us on your show very much. It's any platform is very good, but at the same time, many of us have a hard time trusting you because I have been gotten the sharp end of your tongue before, and you do portray anyone who you don't agree with as being unhinged or crazy, fringe person, and we don't appreciate that. These are just average citizens who are speaking their mind, and it's hard enough to speak up, especially when people in an authority are glaring at you like you're an idiot. And that's why I think more people don't run for public office. We're made to feel stupid, like we have no idea what's going on. It becomes overwhelming. And that, sir, is very dangerous because what you're doing is you're setting it up for a class system, a certain class of people who are the only ones who have the wherewithal, the money, and the influence to go ahead and sit in these positions. Mm-hmm. And then you take the power out of the hands of the people and you put it into these other people's hands, and they do their own agenda, sir. And that's a problem. I've been called bad things by you, and when I spoke at the school board meetings, and I'm a parent. I have a right to be there, and I don't care if you don't like what I have to say, sir, but this is the truth.
Well, I mean, but you talked about, but you talked about, though, executing the school board members.
No, I didn't, sir. That was another person. I merely brought up the Nuremberg Code, which, sir, you and I are not the same. I am a nurse. That is part of very basic medical ethics. We have the Nuremberg Code
but it's
there.
Not, it's
no,
not
sir,
a,
please
not,
don't interrupt me,
Mister. It's not an adopted thing. It's not a thing. You put up a thing there.
Sir.
It's not a thing.
If you go through any sort of medical training, medical ethics is there. Do you know why medical ethics is there? Do you know why we study the Nuremberg Code, sir? Why do we study the Nuremberg Code? Why do we study the Nuremberg Code?
Well, you seem to think that it's.
I want to know why you think it's not important. So just tell me why.
I don't think that you study it.
We do study it. I'll tell you why. In fact, the first part of the Nuremberg Code
you tried to connect it to COVID, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I'm a nurse, and that's what I do. I make sure that people are safe. I make sure that their rights are seen to,
and
even if nobody else knows.
You said that the vaccines were this and that.
What did I say specifically?
All I heard was you and Sherry Snyder say that this was a death penalty offense for not following the Nuremberg Code.
I didn't say that.
Which
I
is not
mentioned
true.
That I only mentioned that the Nuremberg Code is something that we have to uphold. And if I don't stand up for you and say, hey, wait a minute, before the surgeon operates on you, I want to make sure, are you sure you're not allergic to anything? Are you sure you understand what you're doing? Are you sure that is informed consent, sir? And if you don't have informed consent and you have regrets afterward, my license is at stake. Not only that, sir, you would probably wish that someone was there to advocate for you because you don't know all of the fine details of those things that go with medicine. So that's why I'm upset, because you're trying to make it sound like... No, sir, you're trying to make it sound... No,
you made it sound
you're
like
from California, and that's why a lot of people don't trust you, because you bring your progressive ideas here. Yes, sir.
You don't know anything about my California progressive ideas.
Well, actually, I saw on your online, and I wanted to point out, sir, that's just that goes in with my point. A lot of and I've heard, because when I told everyone I'm going to be on the lead today, they said, well, be careful because he does this. He demonizes people just for speaking up and using their right to speak to their elected officials. And he's from California, and he also has these really out there progressive ideas, and we all agree on that. But I want to point out, let me end with this, and then I will leave you back to it. Yeah. Sir, you can believe whatever you like to believe. Mm-hmm. I'm simply pointing out that I don't trust you, and that's why I haven't been on your show yet, because you do demonize people who you disagree with. And I am only here to speak for people who have asked me to speak for them. And if you don't believe that the Nuremberg Code is something important that we should really value and at least consider carefully in any aspect of our American lives, then we are not the same, and I really would not trust you to be any sort of elected official for me.
I get struggle with somebody who says to me that the Nuremberg Code is a thing when my own government says we're not going to follow that rule.
So you're saying that's well, why do we teach it in nursing school and medical school?
I'm not sure. You're saying the U.S. government doesn't stand by the Nuremberg?
No, they do not. They never adopted it as a resolution.
Why do they teach it? Why is it taught? Why is it part of ethics?
Because it came in there with after World War II.
Yeah, why?
Because of Joseph Mengele.
What did Joseph Mengele do?
Well, he was a butcher. We know
what did he do?
He experimented on people.
Why? Well, what about his experiments was a problem?
Well, they were unethical. We know that.
What was unethical?
But how is that? Let me ask you this, though. You're saying you're trying to connect it to COVID-19. How is that an issue?
Well, sir, consider the first part of the Nuremberg Code says that we cannot coerce anyone into taking a medical treatment. That means that if you tell someone, if you don't take this vaccination, you will lose your job, or if you don't do this will happen,
We've been doing
or
that
we'll
in this
give you
country
money.
for decades.
No, we have not.
Yes,
sir.
we have. Absolutely.
No, sir. Where?
Are you vaccinated?
That is illegal. That is illegal, sir.
Are you vaccinated?
I am. Well, I was when I was a child.
Right. Because that's what we did in this country.
We didn't. You don't have to, though.
But we
did
it.
It is not law that you have to be vaccinated.
It's people like you who've actually made our country more unsafe by saying you don't need to have this.
How is that?
Do you know how many people have died in this county from COVID-19?
That's a ridiculous number, sir, and they're proving that not
how
only
many,
the PCR
how many
tests,
of them died?
the PCR.
How many have died?
You tell me, sir.
250 people have died.
Oh, wow! Out of 20, you get 26,000 people in the county, sir. More people die from the flu.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
Mr. Amistoy, I'm not going to argue this with you because I
fact.
believe
look
you
it
are.
up.
No, you look it up, sir. Look at the flu numbers from before. Suddenly, flu disappeared. It disappeared. What happened?
Masking,
vaccines. No, that is not. Then why didn't other illnesses? Why COVID was still there, but everything else was fine, right? But why does then
I guess this is why I don't have you on, because you spread misinformation.
No, you spread misinformation.
You spread misinformation.
This is what I do. You
All right,
can't even tell me.
Thank you. Here's the deal.
Very effective liberal tactic.
No,
thank you,
Lewis. Let me ask you one question.
No, go ahead.
Let me make one redneck comment.
Yeah.
The reason that I didn't trust the pandemic is I'm old enough to have seen multiple pandemics, and this was the first pandemic that the first time I heard about it, it was already declared a pandemic. You know, I was around when HIV came out. I was around when swine flu came out. And so just being a little bit wary of my federal government, when the first time I ever hear about it, and here is the coronavirus pandemic. And I went, how did a pandemic sneak up on me? Because I do watch TV and I do, look at news and so on and so forth. And so just from a very simplistic deal, and it's probably a good way to cap this,
right?
I didn't buy it because it was sold so hard and it came out of the gates as a pandemic. And I've never seen a pandemic come out of the gates as a pandemic.
It's all a lie.
Okay.
The way it's been handled.
Here's the deal.
Shame on you, Mr. Amistoy, for treating people that way.
Is this going to be on Facebook? Is it
Yes.
being live?
Yeah,
now?
it's live. It's
Recorded?
recorded. The whole thing will be on Facebook. And here's the beauty of this is that despite our differences, despite our disagreements, I want to open it up. Now, on Friday, we did the Super Show a couple weeks ago, which was a great success. On Friday, we're going to open it up to all of the candidates who want to come on and give 10 minutes. I'm not going to speak. I'm just going to let them talk. And you get 10 minutes and come on and be a part of the show. And so if you guys would come back on Friday.
Gosh, if you're not going to talk, we're not going to have any fun.
Well, maybe you and I separate separately. We'll go separately. More Lewis and Brent, more Lewis and Katy. It'll be great. But no, I'm going to let people get on and speak because one of the things that's a challenge with this election is that there's so many. The school board has got a race. Ingram Independent School District has got a $25 million bond on the ballot. They have a city council race, which is very poorly attended right now. I think only like 30 people have voted in that election.
Where's that at? Ingram? Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And then a school board race in Ingram as well. So if you're a candidate on Friday, we'll send a note out and book it. We'll do it from 9 to about. We'll just go for how long it takes
Till they throw you out of here.
till they throw us out of here. So that's on Friday, the day before the election. Where's the party going to be for you guys? Where's your watch party going to be?
Well, my prediction is the watch party is going to last into the wee hours of the morning because
yeah.
it's always important who counts the vote, not who does
Yeah.
the vote. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The after the election party is going to be held at the Hay Barn.
Okay.
And we're going to be sending out links for people to register. We're going to be giving a dinner, not anything real fancy. It won't be,
Right.
surf and turf. But anyway, we're looking forward to seeing everybody out there and just, we'll have a good time
Right.
and rehash all of the fun things we've been going through.
Right.
We're the cheap candidates. I think it's
The
hot
cheap-
dogs and beans.
Hot dogs and
Yes,
beans.
right. Oh, I wasn't going to say that.
Just
Hot dogs and beans.
just do the walking
And a beer.
tacos and beer. Oh, that'd be good.
And a beer.
That'd be good.
We
All
need
right.
the beer burros.
Right.
All right. Well, great stuff, everybody. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys for being here. It was a robust conversation, to say the least. So,
Thank you.
thank you
So
guys.
investigate my papers.
I will.
Lewis.
I'm going to go ask those right now.
All right.
So, all right, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us. Tomorrow on the show, we will have Sisters in Service will be back here tomorrow to talk about what they did with their fundraiser. And then we're going to have someone talking about exercise classes that they're going to be offering. And who else knows will show up tomorrow on the lead. Wednesday, Rachel Fitch will be back. And then on Thursday, I don't know who I have. Oh, I have Michael Tackett coming on Thursday from the Kerrville Independent School District. So with that, everybody, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks a lot for joining us. See you guys again tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.